Evening, we'll begin the meeting, and it's Monday, August 11th, 2025. This is the Stoughton Plan Commission meeting, and it looks like we have a quorum, and we are in compliance with open meeting laws. So the first order of business would be approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes from the last meeting. I would entertain a motion.
There's two. There's 4:14 and 5 on there. Do you want one? It's for that, however you guys want to do it. Is just line and
Sure.
I'll move to approve.
All right.
Wilson, second.
All right, any discussion on any of them? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. City Council Representative Report. Alderperson Caravello.
Thank you. Looks like the only activity from council was at the July 22nd meeting where R105, 106, 107, 108, and R109 were all approved.
Do you have an update on the 10:35
All right, any questions on that? And then we also have an update on the RDA site. Did you want to give that?
I think that Dave Boss is on.
Okay.
So the SIP was turned in, but it.
I don't think he can hear you.
Oh, sorry. The SIP was turned in, but we need more information on it, so it's going to get pushed to the September meeting, but Dave is on to give an update, so.
Hi, thank you, Chris. Yeah, the update on the SAP submittal, we received Chris's staff report last week. There was a number of issues that needed to be addressed, including setbacks for the upper floor balconies and some other miscellaneous issues like design of retaining walls, et cetera. So we've addressed all those. We put together a resubmittal package today, and I'll be following up on that resubmittal package with a sheet-by-sheet narrative of how each of those staff comments and the council ordinance issues are being addressed with the SIP submittal. So we hope to have that approval next month at the Plan Commission meeting so that we can submit our WIDA application in September for the project.
All right, any questions on that? I know we continue to work on the developers agreement, and I think we're making pretty good progress with that. And then the City Council had authorized Ellers to do the pro forma analysis for the TIF request that we have for that. So we're hoping that all the pieces of the puzzle will come together in September-ish, and we can have a deeper conversation at that point.
And Mayor, is it okay if I touch on the CSM? I think that was the next agenda item.
It's number 10, I think. So we'll bring you back for that one.
Okay.
All right. Any questions so far? All right. So we're on item number 6, citizen comments. I do have a couple people signed up to speak on specific issues. Did anybody else want to speak on anything else? Okay, you can come up.
Up to the podium, and if you could.
On the development by the old car wash.
That is actually number 9 on the agenda, so you can, if you want to speak now, or if you want to speak during the discussion.
I'll do it during that.
Okay.
Okay, that'll work. All right, no other citizen comments. We'll go to item number 7, which is a conditional use permit for 1305 East Main Street. This one, we're going to have a need for a public hearing, but before we do that, Director Munz-Pritchard, do you want to give us an overview of this one?
So this is at 1305 East Main Street. It requires a conditional use permit because it has indoor commercial entertainment. I'm going to paraphrase for you guys. One half of it is a the gaming. I'm forgetting what they're called.
Arcade.
Arcade, and then the other half is repair for arcade on it. It meets the standards. The only requirements that I put on it, so I said hours of operation should be established for the conditional use permit. I believe that he did email hours of operation, so within reasonable. Occupancy should be established by the fire department and posted. The parking regulations of 1 space per every 3 people at the maximum capacity of the establishment should be used to establish the minimum parking requirements. The parking stall should be striped. It should be noted that the parking is showing like off the property line. If you look at this property, it's kind of different. There is a giant easement and, well, no, it's not an easement. It's city-owned property, but you can see this lot and Quick Trip also use it for parking. I don't think anybody's gonna watch and make sure they're not parking on it, but maybe not striping those areas would be a direction to go because it's technically not their property. And approval by engineering, building inspector, fire inspector, any other city departments, and any other conditions that you guys would like to see.
All right, thank you. Any questions before we go into the public hearing? Alderperson Caravello?
I have 2 quick things. One question was about that easement piece. Is that for Alliant? Is that an overhead line easement thing, or? I'm trying to remember.
So it's not even an easement, it's property that we technically own, and I think it was this is my guess, is remember how, like, one of the first Plan Commission meetings I had with you guys was the Chalet Drive, because that area had been platted, and I think it was originally probably supposed to be a roadway through there, but it's really not. The slope's probably not conducive for that, so it was more used as a line. I don't see us necessarily ever getting rid of it, but at the same time, I don't know that,
Because I think it's also in a line with some power lines.
Yes.
That go.
It is.
Near, adjacent between the Quick Trip and this.
I think you can even see
structure,
some of them in the picture.
Yes.
On the planner's report. Like, you can see them physically on there, so.
Very faint.
Does that back up to the property behind?
This piece that goes, because the power lines go here.
But here.
It goes all,
And
that
then it
strip
goes
goes
all
all the way
the power
through
lines
to the
go
other
all the way
What
street.
goes to there?
And then there's still
What's
that,
back
like,
here?
weird little,
Nothing. There's nothing actually back there.
That's the one that we have.
That's that wetland that we have the
Yep.
property to.
So the question
yeah,
is,
some of the, so it
is
was
that
like, you can see it was originally platted.
could be from
um,
the trail to get foods.
I didn't,
It's very.
I mean, I know it because we did the research for those townhomes, but I didn't really dive too much into it because,
But that's,
yeah, the conditional use permit, like, they're not changing anything on the outside of the building. It's pretty,
Or the point about not striping that because that's not their property to use as parking is valid. I don't know what else, because I have a feeling that has something to do with the power line.
well, and it's,
It's not
in the
just us, I
picture,
think.
you can see that there are people parked in that area on the adjacent lot, but it's not,
And it's the area that
Yeah.
Quick Trip also
So it's-
uses for their dumpsters as well. that-
yes,
on that
yes,
spot,
which, that's
which
why
is
I didn't
also
really
not
want
their
to.
property.
Didn't really want to broach it completely because it's like, that's not, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But at the
that's-
same time, it's just like, do we care if people are parked there?
Well,
I don't know, but,
I would think so, considering that piece of property that we're talking about backs up to a piece of property that we now own, which was wetlands behind the chalet,
yep,
whatever. So that could very well be a trail or connection to get to the school.
yeah,
And
and,
so therefore,
yes,
nobody should be parking on it.
right.
And so what are we going to do about that?
I mean,
I don't know if we would do anything until we make a commitment to do the trail.
Well,
And I would say that it's,
that's a rather short-sighted thing, because I can see someone saying adverse
you
possession.
can't do that on
on-
government property.
yeah, but with your point
Yeah.
taken,
You should talk to the DNR about that.
I did have I do know about that you can't do it with adverse possession with local government, and it's a really long, convoluted story that I could tell you about involving buildings at the UW Whitewater that were located on City Street that had should have been vacated in 1975. And I was just like, can we just adverse possess it? And they were like, no. And then it was over 2 counties on top of it too.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna solve that one tonight, but we can certainly focus on
Please.
the property at hand, and then we can have a
Mr.
deeper
Mayor.
discussion later. Go ahead.
Put up a no parking sign. I think the city could probably do that if it's our property, and just advise these people that that's not their parking area. 'Cause, I mean, I do agree on the adverse thing. I mean, yeah, you're saying they can't, but somebody could just make a lot of noise if they wanted to. Why bother with it?
I think, I hate saying this stuff on record. I don't think this is the business that seems like that they're violating that, if you look at the picture. And so I don't want, while they're showing that they're striping there, and they can't, and they shouldn't, and they've gotten the letter that they're not to be striping there, I don't know that this particular location is the bigger, violator of parking on the city parking. So I don't necessarily want, that's why I was like, man, this is kind of a weird one, and that's why I addressed it and said, you can't do this. So it's part of the conditions, but.
Might be for a different committee at a different meeting, perhaps.
Yes.
Tackle that one.
It's
Yeah.
about them doing improvements. If they're doing any improvements out there, paving, patching, paving, striping, then they might have a case. That's why I'm just saying.
They
that might
can't,
be-
and it says on there, you cannot be doing it in this location. That was like, that's why I was like, this red area is not yours, therefore you cannot. Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Okay, and what were the hours?
I think it was, if I'm.
Does that have to be part of the
Yeah, and I
conditions?
can establish those later, but I think it was till 9, if I'm remembering. But there is no alcohol being served at this location. It is just strictly,
Okay.
Then,
no, that was the,
and my other thing to point out regarding this is, if you notice on the second page of the actual resolution, under the be it resolved, the be it resolved does not match this resolution. The be it resolved is for an apartment project located on Cromwell Court.
what? Okay, I'll get that
Wanted to
fixed.
make sure that
Yeah,
the right things go to the right things.
I will get that fixed first
Okay.
thing.
All right, are you ready to go into a public hearing? All right, we'll close the regular hearing, go into a public hearing for 1305 East Main Street. And anybody here would like to speak on this one? Hearing none, close the public hearing. We'll open it up for our business. We're looking for a recommendation to the city council.
Don't everybody
I-
go at once.
I move that it be approved with the conditional use of no parking in that red box area.
And the hours.
And the hours.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. Any discussion on the conditional use?
I just had one comment in for the applicant for it. This is one that, doesn't single this individual out in any way, but is sort of a pet peeve of mine. Before we have a permit issued and approved, we've already got social media posts stating about opening. I don't like that, because then that always puts us in a difficult position. So,
Okay.
You can always vote no.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
I
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, consider a zoning change in 1214 East Main Street. from planned business to planned development with underlying institutional zoning. This one would also need a public hearing. I think there's at least one person that's here to speak on it. You want to give us an overview before we get into it?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little background. So this is a review of a proposed zoning change at 1214 East Main Street. This is that one old car wash that's across the street from the area we were just talking about. From planned business to planned development with the underlying institutional zoning. Per the zoning number 7 regulation, the regulation applies to institutional residential use. Is essentially it's applied to MR zoning district. So they're asking for planned development, institutional. When you go to the institutional zoning district, you have to apply the MR zoning district regulations. Does that make sense? Kind of, I mean, you guys are following what I'm saying? So, the lot was previously a car wash, though it has not been active. The site has 2 existing access points, one located on Main Street and the other located on Amundsen Parkway. This is part of the development adjacent to it. And so I'll give you a little bit of information. So this is part of the Scullin, and I actually attached, so on your report below you can see in red, that's part of that similar development that's around. So when they came to me, I was trying to establish the plan development, and I went to pull the original plan development, and I couldn't find anything. So essentially, the area was platted in 1980, but then when you look at the imagery, you can see in 1987, this development shows up. And I did find the plan unit development, which was Chalet Square for 1984, which that's what it was falling under at the time, which is the name of the plat in 1980. However, the file was only 1 page, and then I made the mayor look at it to verify. And this is so this is referencing that area because I was like, okay, what's over here? So after reviewing the project in the adjacent lot, it would be ideal to place the proposal in the other lots under the same development for future expansion and regulation. So in other words, what we're trying to do here is reestablish that original plan development that happened in 1980 so that we have a base for going forward for this development, because they've talked about expanding, and so then we can apply that to any expansions for this type of development. So review of the proposed project and list of exemptions that they're asking for. So the minimum lot size in MR zoning district, again, because we're applying it that way, it doesn't meet the minimum requirements. So the proposed property is assessed at 6.5 acres, and that's one of the things. Minimum front yard, street yard setback is 25 feet from the right of way. The 25-foot setback on Main Street side, however, on the Amundsen Parkway is a 15-foot setback is what they're asking for here. But they can meet the rear on Main Street. And then minimum landscaping ratio is 50%. The property will need to meet 0.3% acres. So according to the zoning code, the plan development is designed to provide, and then it goes through what it's for. So why I base my recommendations the way that I did is because we want to establish those other areas that are existing and then create like a framework going forward for when this comes up. So minimum lot size they put down is 0.5 acres. Minimum lot width, street frontage is 100 feet. Minimum front and rear street yard setback is 25 feet. Minimum street side yard setback is 15. So if it's side yard, can be 15 if it's street side yard, but everything else has to maintain that 25. Minimum rear side yard setback, not street, 10. Minimum rear yard, 20. Accessory structures are not included in this area of the development. Any accessory structure should be in conjunction with a community garden. Number 7, minimum building separation is 20 feet for multi-principal dwelling on the same lot. More than 20 feet between the building may be requested. So like if Josh, our fire chief, was like, we need more than 20 feet for safety purposes, he has that. The design of the building shall be set the maximum building height. The buildings are single-story ranch residential architectural style. typical charactered by, and then it talks about what that is. The duplex/twin homes and townhome developments shall have a minimum of 2 units per building and a maximum of 6 units per building. Again, we're not putting 6 on this, but you guys are understanding kind of what I'm doing here. The property, I'll use a joint or private driveway. A maintenance plan for repair and snow removal should be documented. The development should be limited to 1 curb cut for large development. The fire department can recommend up to 3 for safety and traffic circulation. So if there's a really large area, like 2 acres, they could request up to 3 for those. Minimum landscape surface ratio is 45% with a trail system that ties into the larger developments where possible. Number 11, required buffer yard, a combination of distance, vegetation, fencing, and berming resulting in like the reduce, and they do a good job of that along Main Street with those berms. Each unit has a minimum of 2 bedrooms and has an attached 1-car garage, so that's the minimum. I believe that most of them are two bedroom with actually 2-car garages, but the 1 car. Each unit shall have an individual garbage and recycle bin. Number 14 is kind of house cleaning. During the research of the plan development, I found a resolution 13-85 that should have discontinued the Gills Court. Right now, if you get onto GIS, there is right-of-way in the center of that. So we're working towards refiling that. This was reviewed and approved, just never filed, and it needs to be cleaned up. And in fact, they did send me a CSM updating this to fix it. Once construction on any of them, an as-built survey will need to be provided to the Department of Planning and to confirm like site placement, and then approval by the Department of Public Works, Stoughton Utilities, Building Inspector, Fire Inspector, and any other departments and any other conditions identified by staff. Do you guys understand why what I did here? Okay.
So, so basically, we're just approving what's already there, but if something were to happen to some of the units and they went to replace them, they would have to replace them basically the same?
Well, so when we originally met with the Scullin people, they were just like, yeah, as property in these areas become available, we want to purchase and build more of them, because I guess there's a waiting list. And yeah, so I was like, they could probably talk more to that. So I was like, let's find the original plan development, which did not happen because I couldn't find it. And so I was like, okay, let's establish what this is. So going forward, if they're expanding, we can, move forward. With that said, there were a couple of spots on the existing ones that don't meet setback regulations, particularly in the rear lots. And then there's some kind of wonkety property lines that are adjacent, but they're through their trail systems. But this one, the one with right-of-way going directly through it with the buildings, was pretty low-hanging fruit. So I was like, hey, can we clean this up while we're doing this? And they were like, yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, so it's for future expansion.
Yes.
Okay. All right, any questions before we go into public hearing? Alderperson Tilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sidewalk, I don't see a sidewalk on Edmondson Street. Is that?
No, there's not. And I don't think that they're going to be able to tie into the trail system there. And that's why I put where possible.
Yeah.
So.
To my understanding, if they're going to expand and keep expanding properties, I would think make them have the sidewalk, because this will be a pattern over time.
Yeah.
More buildings, and then to say now you have to tear up the old lot or after you've bought this one. I would just have them put the sidewalk in since they're changing the property, and so that as they continue to buy other properties, if it comes to that we have sidewalks on Edmondson also.
I'm gonna add it. I'm just looking to find where I need, and I want to add it to the area with the reduced, tie-in where possible. This includes adding a sidewalk to. That's where I'll put it. Is that okay?
For sure.
Okay.
I see sidewalks on all the other streets as developments have happened. I think if it'd just be nice to start the process there.
I agree.
Yes.
All right, anything else? Anything from other commissioners? All right, we'll close the regular meeting and open for the public hearing. And I think we do have, let's see, Mark is signed up to speak, and there's folks online. Anybody else want to speak? Otherwise, Mark can speak to this, or Chris, or whoever. Come on up. You can push the button and the red light will come on. There you go. Now,
Okay.
And what's your name?
Never been to a meeting like this before.
You just
Jeff
give us your-
Gasson,
Okay.
105 North Henry Street.
All right.
And I support the what they're going to do there as far as the buildings there for Scotland. I'm just worried about the lot line on the back of my house up against that property. If you look at the one picture, it looks really crowded. I know my lot line is very close to my house.
Is it this picture?
They show a picture where they actually have the drawing with the building, with what they've got proposed. At least the one that I've got.
All of the plans are included, so if you want to keep scrolling down.
Yeah, right there.
All right, I'll blow this up a little bit.
And my property is that one on the left of the picture.
This one here.
And how far away does their bushes and that privacy fence have to be from the lot line as far as in proximity to our property?
So
Because it's really close.
it is very close. That's a really close lot line with your house too. The nice thing is did they reach out to you? I thought they were going to talk with you.
They did. I was gone for 2 weeks, and I tried calling, but
Yeah.
I knew this was coming up, so.
So they're meeting the side yard setback over there without any variance or flexibilities or anything. The fence will have to follow the fence ordinance. I can't remember off the top of my head the exact distance, but it essentially, if it's on the property line, I believe there has to be like an agreement in place.
Okay.
The one thing
I
that
thought
they-
it was 4 feet, but I'm not sure on that.
On the fence, I don't believe it's 4
From
feet.
the lot line?
Yeah, I don't think so. The one thing that we wanted to make sure is there was berming in this area so you have privacy. So that's why the bushes and stuff are located the way that they are, so that is being done.
I'm just curious how close that is, because the garage, especially that's close to Main Street, is really close to the lot line. So,
Yeah, your building is almost on the line. It's really, really close. Yeah.
I'm not even sure what the measurements are. I don't know if you have those or not, but, you know, where the lot line comes close to my house and the garage.
I think that I measured this a while back, and I mean, it's like barely 5 feet for the rear yard on yours.
Okay.
It's really, really close. Your building would be considered an existing non-conforming structure, so.
So I guess you have to look into the rules on where they place things up by the lot line then.
I know that we have fence ordinances as far as berming and plants. I don't know that we necessarily have anything prohibiting them within the property. I mean, obviously, they can't plant on your property. but-
Okay.
Actually, as I'm looking at this illustration, so it looks like there's fencing along the back, and then just a short section, an abbreviated section at the west, towards the rear of their lot at the west, but then there's the large tree, but I don't think I see the illustration of the fence extending towards Main Street.
Yeah, it looks like it's a short fence,
Yeah.
but you know, I think to block headlights on the driveway, I think is probably what it's mainly for.
So it is 13 feet from the building to the property line on the proposal, but the other thing too is that they'll be bringing this back in for an SIP approval. I believe it's on the September meeting.
Okay. All right, well, that's about all I had then. I
All
was
right.
just curious on that.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak on this issue at public hearing?
I guess I would, this is Mark Bolke, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I'm a land planner with Hoffman Planning and Design, and we're working with Scotland on this development. I guess I can address a couple of things that were brought up. The fence, we decided to put the fence, there's a fence along the north property line now that's pretty dilapidated, so we wanted to replace that on the north property line. We extended it a little bit south on the west property line, but we didn't know how it might impact the existing home if we put a fence that close to the back of their house. So I think Chris Krenz with Colin had reached out to the neighbor. They just haven't connected yet. We understand there's an area there that's pretty tight, so I think we want to work with the neighbor to put some landscaping and so forth in there, but we can talk about that further, as Chris said, at the SIP stage, and we did submit an SIP, and we certainly can talk more about that as part of that. So I hope that clarifies. And then I just wanted to introduce myself and say I'm here to answer any questions too.
Okay.
Tim, this is Chris Krentz. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Chris.
Okay. I'm the president and CEO at Scotland, and I did try to reach out to all the neighbors that had a parcel on the periphery of that development. I didn't get everybody, and unfortunately I had to leave for vacation on Friday, so hopefully I just didn't connect with the neighbor, and I'll have a voicemail to return upon my return to the office. But yeah, I mean, we don't want to do anything that's going to put anybody out. We want to do everything for the betterment of the neighborhood. We've been a long-term neighbor, obviously, and just want to continue that. So we actually, through the design process, have gotten rid of a couple windows in that unit, so there would be privacy. And I think the windows that were on that unit would be basically looking towards either the landscaping or the back of that gentleman's garage.
All right.
And I'm also here to introduce myself and here for any other questions that may come up.
All right. Thank you for being here. We can close the public hearing and then reopen. Is there any questions or comments or concerns from the commissioners? Alderperson Schumacher.
Fence setback by the ordinance is 3 feet unless there's an agreement, and then it can be a minimum of 6 inches.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we're looking for a recommendation to the council on the zoning, right? It would be at the council for 2 readings?
Yeah, it'd be at the council for 2 readings, and
And you time it with the SIP, or what are you thinking?
we could review and approve the SIP pending zoning approval. So they put in to go to the September meeting. I don't have a problem with that, with the understanding they could do all the heavy lifting, and then if it fails on the second reading, then it fails.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're looking for a recommendation on the zoning aspect, understanding that the SIP will be coming back. Hopefully this issue will get resolved by then. So go ahead. Motion by Bradford. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tillison. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thanks again, everyone, for being here on that issue. And we'll go on to the next one. And this is consider an SIP approval for 1420 Nygaard Street. Director Munz-Pritchard, do you want to give us an update on this one?
Yeah, so guys, feel free to jump in here, because I think all of our SIPs that we've done so far have been amendments. We haven't done one since I've been here that's a standalone necessarily. So this is if it looks familiar, it's because it was here at the last meeting for a zoning amendment, because it had been like basically an ag transition area. So the property is located at 1420 Nygaard. The property is approximately 1.2 acres, and the property has a zoning change from to planned business under ordinance 27-2025. The applicant's intending to establish a veterinary clinic in the location. The veterinary clinic falls under the commercial land use, which is a permitted use in this district. So this is just the SIP approval on this. So the standard zoning districts for an SIP approval in the planned business district. So basically, there's that little chart, and there's 3 different categories that the SIP approval can fall under. And this is 2 of the 3 because it's not a planned development. So I didn't look at that criteria, but a lot of it's all the same language. So 2 of the 3 apply to this SIP approval. The following is the review of the SIP approval and with the minimum requirements, what is and is not met. So, and then just more of an FYI, they have addressed some of these and they are updated in the packets, like not in yours out, but in the other one. So essentially, what I'm going to do is the first part, they met all of the requirements except for they need the lighting plan, which was approved, because if they don't meet the lighting plan when I get it, they can't put it in, right? And then the other one that was needed was hours of operation, projected normal peak water usage, sanitary and septic load, and traffic generated. And those are going to be more on the back end to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements for like the sewer lines going in. This particular area I'm not super concerned with because it's all newer area and there is an apartment complex next door, so hopefully they planned accordingly. So I'm going to kind of go through and I'll paraphrase some of the stuff, and if you guys have questions, please feel free to jump in. So the veterinary clinic falls under commercial land use, which is permitted. They still have to pull building permits, and then HVAC, all of that stuff they still have to meet at the state and local levels. The public health and safety is not in danger. It's a veterinary clinic and should not endanger the health and public safety of the area. It's not going to have overnight. It's just strictly veteran clinic. So the one concern that they had was on Nygaard Street. The dumpster enclosure is placed directly on top of the existing water and sanitary main within the easement. Pavement, curb, landscaping are allowed to be within easements. However, structures and fencing can't be, so they have to have it moved. And they did update the plans, which moved it to a different location, which again is in the packet. Water sewer laterals are each 6 inches and are stubbed on the edge of the right of way, and is anticipated that all the utility work will be private within the site area. We will require a utility plan showing the route and laterals on the site. 3-phase electricity is available on the site. Adequate control of stormwater erosion control is provided in existing topo drainage patterns and so on. Additionally, some of the areas on the proposed lot need to confirm the adequate drainage justice, and they're going to have to go through like our engineering review and approval on this stuff as well. They're meeting the minimum, so it said parking requirements is 1 space for every 300 square feet. They're proposing 40, their minimum is 20. Better circulation along with a snow removal plan should be provided. My concern was where the dumpster, so they're moving the dumpster, but they're still showing just a peg. So if you're driving in and then you get down there and all of the spaces are taken, you have to back all the way out. And I'd like that fixed. And so that still needs to be a requirement. Provide a sidewalk connection along the street to the public sideway. They actually did do this, but just more of an FYI, when Valcom Way was essentially vacated, a trail easement was established on the north side of the property. They did not tie into this location, but it's still there, just for an FYI. Installing stop signs at the end of the driveway. The minimum landscape surface ratio is 0.37 acres, or 25% per ordinance. I believe that they are meeting that. Yep, I have it figured here. while the minimum landscaping is met, there should be landscaping placed around the trash enclosure between the residential and commercial. So like this is a great transition site, and it will probably be used by people in the residency because you can walk your dog over there, right? But we've got north is the high density residential, south is a chicken place, and then across the street are duplexes. And then we've got the very busy highway on the other side of this. So, so let's see, yep. So while minimum landscaping is met, there should be landscaping placed around it. And then under the exterior, so what's interesting about the site is if you look at it, the front door is actually facing south. And I know at one point we're like, oh, if you rotated this, it could help with the circulation. And they just said, no, it won't work. And I don't know what that means. So, but just so you're understanding, the front door is actually facing down to the south. And then the side is like where most of the parking is. So it's unclear why the front of the building is facing south away from the road. This means the homes along Nygaard will be looking at the side of the building. Per ordinance, both the entrance and area of the building exposed to residential. So it's like they have to meet that and breaking it up. And this is what directly from our ordinance. How does the facade look? The facade, the design aligns with the current facade trends and proposed harmony with the existing neighborhood. There's not a lot of really strong requirements in our facade for me to enforce. I scratched out a minimum of 5 basic home styles because this is not a home, so that's why that's there. The area is a transition between commercial and residential, which I explained, and it will act as a nice buffer, I think, for some of those houses across the street. The exterior is on trend for the current design. They do need, the lighting plan has not been provided, which they did just get me the lighting plan. Lighting plan for the building elevations must include, and then it lists, and then a sign permit is required separately for zoning permits.
All right, any questions on any of that? Okay, so we're looking for consideration of the SIP approval. Anybody willing to make that motion?
This is just on the zoning, this is the building, well, obviously.
This is the site.
This is the site.
Yep,
I'll make a motion for the site.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion or? So it's basically the site with, they have to meet, you know, the rest of the requirements that are listed in the document. No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. All right, next one is to consider a certified survey map, also known on the riverfront redevelopment area. So there's multiple properties down on the river that were included into this site. And we do have a need for a public hearing on this one. We can give an overview before we go in it. I know Dave Voss is here from Alexander. He can kind of walk us through that as well from his perspective. Anything that you want to start out with, Director Munz-Pritchard?
So right now, this is a 2-lot CSM with the dedicating of the road right-of-way. The lot 2 will be further subdivided as engineering is done. So we can figure out where placement of lot lines are with stormwater and all that fun stuff. So at this point, lot 1, you guys have seen, we've gone through the plan development. It will be coming up for an SIP approval at the next Plan Commission meeting, hopefully, and this is establishing that lot. And then as the development goes, you guys will see this again for a further subdivision of this area. I can read through the requirements, but most of them are, so like it has to meet state code. Recording of it has to be done within a year or it's not good anymore. the meets and bounds. So when I originally got this, it was kind of like the draft of what it was going to be. They provided a meets and bounds survey to me, and it's actually on the page. Al, it's not in yours, I'm sorry. But like if you go to and then click over, you can see it. So hang on. There it is right there. So there's actually the meets and bounds versus kind of that like, hey, here's the idea. Needs to show that with all utilities and all that fun stuff. And then the other part of it is the radial curves at the street. So, and my understanding is that they do the radial curves because it helps ensure with vision triangle. So.
Yeah.
And then labeling and all of that fun stuff. I just don't want to bore you. I know you guys, I feel like I say the same thing over and over to you guys sometimes, that I just don't want to bore you, so.
Yeah, basically the CSM, allows us to move forward on the engineering, right? More than anything.
Yeah, and it's really, this is going to help Dave, and he can speak to it too, but this is an important, very, very important component for him putting in his tax credits. It's one of the main requirements. The SIP is not a requirement. Zoning is a requirement. Having the lot established is the requirement, which makes sense. So this does need to get done.
Anything you want to add, Dave?
No, other than this will be an exhibit to the development agreement that we need to have finalized for site control for our weed application that Chris was touching on.
Okay. Anything from commissioners before we go into the public hearing? We'll close our regular meeting, go into public hearing, and nobody is signed up for this one. Was there anyone that wanted to speak to it? Hearing none, we'll open up the meeting, and then we'd be looking for a recommendation to the city council on this CSM. Motion by Bradford, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Schumacher. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thanks for being here, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Then we have, what, 3 ordinances that we're working on here?
So the first one I'm going to have Brett speak about.
All right, let me see if I can.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
What's going on?
All right.
I wasn't prepared.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
She does that to me all the time. No, I think it's the other way around.
I think it is the other way around, but we're not gonna talk about that. So essentially what this is this came out of the sustainability committee, and that's why I was leaning on Brett, and then it's coming to you guys because you actually do the land division, and then it's going to council obviously for first and second reading. But essentially what it's looking at is it's kind of giving us something to fall back on to say, hey, design around these environmental corridors. And I know that it's funny, Rick did send a couple markups, which I'll get on to the next one, but it's gone through a couple different committees. The example that I used is when this was kind of on the radar, and I can explain a little why, is that we had the oak opening that popped through, right? Well, when we started looking at that oak opening, where it popped through, we didn't realize that, and it's a really wooded area, there is a significant kettle there. Like the amount of dirt that was gonna have to be filled just to make this, it's almost to the point of not feasible. And so looking at something like that and designing the road around it so that we don't need to be filling and or worrying about areas flooding instead of just slapping over a grid pattern is really what this is trying to get at. So I am going to turn it over to Brett now.
So, in addition to that, that's a good example on that one, but it would be like being able to work around groves of trees, old growth trees. We have to work around delineated wetland anyway, but other areas that might be minor wetland or areas that probably aren't the best idea to build on anyway. I think I'm murdering this probably worse than.
I'll put up another example for you today, and it's kind of interesting timing because today I was at Kettle Park Senior Living, and one of the residents there brought this up as a concern that as we continue to grow, that we're gonna, eliminate wetlands and wooded areas and things that, are of value. And so this is one of the examples that we looked at where this is Magnolia Springs. And what we did is in the parkland there was a natural wetland there. So we tried to design the park around the wetland to make that a feature of the park. So I think that's kind of what the committee is getting at, is to do things like that, to integrate whether it's woods or prairies or wetlands, or I don't know, Tom, you probably know more examples than I do of what we're trying to preserve here as we continue to grow, and then try to identify them ahead of time before they get filled in or cut down or, something like that happens.
I think too, there was another discussion where we were like, it was kind of a lot of times we'll cut down trees to then require them to replant the trees. And a lot of times, when you're looking at farm areas, there's most likely a reason that area is not farmed and there's an outcrop of trees. It's either there is huge slope or low bedrock or something like that, and designing around these areas, keeping the trees. I just feel like it'll benefit us as a city, it'll benefit the developer, and really long term, I'm hoping it benefits the landowner, like the actual homeowner. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I would share is Chris and I went on a tour last week in the 90-degree weather.
It was awful. The weather.
And we walked uphill both ways. But
yes.
It was a really good tour, and it was a development that was started 27 years ago, and one of the folks from the engineering firm basically has been there since day one, and even 27 years ago, there was a section of trees that they wanted to preserve and make that a feature and build around it instead of through it. So I thought that was a really good example of what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
here.
it ended up like some of the spaces that they used, they had trees that were growing up because they were natural lot lines in that particular development, but they used those as buffers between higher density and lower density, and that's really what we're trying to get at, and it's giving something for us to be like, hey, you have to meet these criteria, so
I think what we're seeing an effort, instead of just clear cutting the site and starting from scratch, to try to build around things that would be important that you'd want to have, and why wait 20, 30 years for it to grow back when it's already there. Alderperson Caravello.
Can you tell us what this development was that had this example of?
It was done by Vanderbilt, and I could drive you there. So I could drive there and in my head, and I could pull it and send you the information.
Yeah.
I also got lost.
Don't ask her how to find it on her GPS.
I got lost.
It's over by the Great Dane, kind of by Cottage Grove-ish area, if you know where that Great Dane is over there.
So that Great Dane was actually the first commercial development in that overall development, and I think originally it was quite large. I think it was 300 acres, right? Something like that.
Yeah, just about 300 acres. They're not completely done with it yet,
Yeah.
but all along the way they've been doing some of the things that we either did or we should have done. So preserving the trees, having different price points, having a mix of multifamily, some market rate, some subsidized, having some alley lots, having some single family homes at different price points. So it's really a lot of the same things we're doing now. They figured that out 27 years ago. It's actually pretty amazing. I thought it was a really good tour.
Except for at the 90-degree.
Well,
thought
But-
another thing in the committee, when we were talking about this, was we went over like soil types and that quite a bit, so that we can identify that, like where hydric soils would be questionable as far as should we develop that, because you're gonna have a problem later.
And I recognize that, but we just had a developer that came in a while back, and I said, hey, can you design around these areas? Because we know something's going on there. I can tell, like I can look at maps and tell, like, you know, darker lines represent the hydric soils. You can see drainage patterns going on there. We don't want to put a house, like some poor person's house, in the center of this. And that particular developer came back with just a grid pattern over it again. And I was just like, I mean, just the long term, like, how much is it going to cost to develop that? How much filler are they going to have to bring in? You know, what's that homeowner's going to deal with in the long run? So I think this will help, but this really came out of one of Brett's committees. So that's why I was trying to get him to talk about it. So. Sorry,
Yeah,
man.
and the other thing I would say is, I think this is a really good ordinance, but I also think that it could evolve as we discover new things, and, you know, we're environmentally in a different place maybe than we were just a short time ago. And I think it's becoming more and more of a awareness thing and an issue. So if it's not 100% perfect, it will certainly be, you know, willing to amend it as we go. But right now, we really don't have anything. Commissioner Farrell?
I'm trying to understand the process here. Under, this would be an ordinance, right? So under 66-108, it starts out, and it talks about, the way I read it, that the Plan Commission is the gatekeeper, so to speak. Should we also have the planning director be a gatekeeper before it even potentially reaches the Plan Commission?
Yeah, so normally what would happen just in general is, like, if somebody comes to me with a land division, well, we would have a TAC meeting, and out of that, so the technical advisory committee, so we pull all the engineers, everybody in, and we're looking at like all of the factors. We're looking at like, okay, it's going to need increased, all of that stuff. And that's where I would start looking at this and making recommendations to you guys. Now, using our ordinance, you guys can, you know, I'm like, here's my recommendation, right? This is why I'm recommending it from our Plan Commission meeting, but I think you guys are the gatekeepers of it. You're the enforcers.
Yeah, you guys are.
I mean, you can add me to it if you want.
This group is a decision maker. I would think that when Chris would wrote her a report, she would include her concerns or her recommendations, just like everything else. And I also believe that the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, you know, they're mostly charged with doing stormwater management systems, but I know there's always been an effort for them to get more into this arena. Now, whether or not that happens, I don't know. They certainly have some expertise there, but they're somewhat limited on their scope right now. So they may at some point have some thoughts, and if they do, we may or may not want to, you know, integrate their recommendations into our ordinance at a later date. Go ahead.
And a follow-up question, I guess, is, it would be a big effort, I suppose, but would there be any effort by the planning department to pre-identify some of these plots so the developer knows before he even gets started on thinking about it, instead of the ball's in motion and now we have to come in and stop the ball rolling, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually do have our GIS intern working on some of these areas so we can identify like corridors, and then that way we can send them to the developer and be like, here's the corridors, like how are you designing around it? So
We've had this conversation over the years at the Park and Rec Committee, and one of the challenges is oftentimes some of the things that have been done to alter the properties are done before it's annexed. So we may not always have jurisdiction at a key moment. So that is kind of one of the challenges. I don't know if there's a way for us to deal with that. But certainly, sometimes, you know, we're brought in the loop on the plans before it's annexed, and at that point, we could certainly have that conversation and say, look, there's gonna be some expectations, and, you know, we can't tell you what to do before you annex the land, but we can tell you if you do things that are detrimental to the land, it's probably not gonna help your case when it gets to the Plan Commission, the Park and Rec Committee, and the City Council. I don't know if we can go any further with that, but certainly we would try to set some groundwork.
Some of this does fall under town zoning, so like shoreline zoning is mentioned in it, and that all falls under, but we can't really, sorry. We can't
We can't enforce something that's not in the
on
city.
yeah.
So we have to stay within our jurisdiction, but we can certainly give them a heads up that, hey, conversation would be a lot easier if you work around this, you know, during the annexation and development process. We definitely would have that conversation. And I think more often than not, this is also going to be beneficial to the developer. And I think the one at Magnolia Springs is a good example, you know, because that wetland, they can't build on it anyway. So why would you want to spend money trying to, you know, I don't know what else they would have done with it.
Well, the kettle one was a good one, for example.
Yeah.
The amount of fill that was gonna have to be brought in was gonna be just a lot. It's a pretty easy shift to the right to solve it.
Did you have any other questions, Commissioner Farrell?
No.
I know there's a fair amount there, but it's bullet pointed nicely. Commissioner Mayeski?
I'm glad you're finally getting to this point, because for years, I would talk to the alders about looking outside our jurisdictional boundaries to what is basically our extraterritorial review. Because what's happening is we get these extraterritorial reviews that come for approval to us, and we're blind. We have no idea what's happening on those what the future is. Are they parcels that are being developed that we may want, that have natural areas to them, have significance that we would may require in the future to target as parkland or open space? We have none of that right now. You know, we fly blind, and so we basically always have to go yes, no matter what.
We kind of still have to.
I know we still have to, but my point is that we can at least, at that point, you can say, this is our reasoning for our concerns. And we're identifying things so that in the future, when they do come to annex, it's not gone. The best parts of that parcel are not destroyed by, you know, turned into a tabletop so that we can put as much housing on it as we possibly can. That's always been a major concern. And also, how do you plan your parks and open space in future developments if you can't do it until after they've already come in, the developers come in and they throw a plan at us and it shows everything, and it's like, well, that's not where we want to park. That doesn't even seem feasible. If we do this ahead of time, we then at least have an opportunity to say, you know, I'm sorry, don't spend your engineering and your money on something that's not going to get approved anyway. And that's always been a big discussion point from the developers' viewpoints of, well, we've already spent all this money, and how can we change this now? So this is a step in the right direction, and I'm glad to finally see it happening.
The dude sitting next to you. Just saying, not Phil.
Listen. Way to go, Phil.
All right, are there any questions about any of the individual bullet points here, or it seems pretty straightforward. I think that the committee did a nice job. All right, we have a need for a public hearing. So we'll close the regular hearing, open it for a public hearing. Oh, there are a few people left online. Anybody wish to speak? All right, we'll move back into our regular session here. We're looking for a recommendation to the city council. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayeski. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next one, Central Business District.
Okay, so we've got 3 on tonight. We just did 1. If you guys are getting burnout, you just need to let me know. We'll postpone it. So, okay. So
I
Central
am.
Business District.
I've had enough.
You've had enough. All
No,
right,
just
we heard it. Are you guys done, really? It's okay if you
No,
are.
I'm just teasing you.
Okay, I was like, so we've got the Central
Onward.
Business District. Direction was to rewrite this. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the overview real fast. So here's the zoning map. The central business is the area zoned in red right now. And part of what prompted this is that basically it had a reference to multifamily zoning that when we changed the multifamily zoning, it pulled it out of compliance. And so this was another thing that we wanted to look at and get going on. So Central Business District, you guys can follow along if you want. Definition, description, and purpose, I left the same in this area. And I'm not going to read through everything, but feel free to stop me if you have questions. So everybody remembers the cliff notes for permitted uses, conditional uses, all that fun stuff. So permitted uses, we're still doing outdoor, mobile services, office, personal, professional, indoor sales, indoor maintenance, off-street parking, all of this fun stuff. Only small change is solar systems can only be mounted on the roof, so that's going in, because we don't want them in the front yard of an area that essentially should not have front yards, right? So like that's why it's a little bit different in there. Exterior communication, and we added undeveloped lots, because if a lot's not developed, like if we have a dilapidated building, we should be able to tear that down and let it sit until a development comes through. So one of the other things in here that I pulled out was right now, I think that like restaurants are permitted use in this district. They shouldn't be. That should be, or I mean a conditional use. It should be a permitted use. The exception to that, and we'll kind of talk about it, is alcohol. So if alcohol is being sold, so that would be what triggers the conditional use, is the taverns and other places selling alcoholic beverages. And then keep in mind that they have to meet these minimum requirements when they go through the conditional use. So under the conditional use, we have the taverns that require conditional use. Here's the things that we're looking at that we can turn them down or approve based on. Signage, outdoor seating, provisions of noise and lighting, obtaining an alcohol license, and then running with that group and establishing maximum occupancy in the building and needing to be posted, which is part of fire inspection, but it's nice to have it spelled out there. Community gardens was originally part of it. We went ahead and added it here as well. And then, so if you guys are like, oh, I want more detail here, then send me that direction, right? Indoor institutional, outdoor seating and patio areas associated with indoor entertainment land uses, so that way we can establish hours of operation, all that fun stuff. Institutional residential, which is like senior living, like assisted senior living. This is spelled out in here because we talked a little bit about the parking for those areas. Bed and breakfast spelled out in here because we only are requiring 2 spaces essentially, and that's the people living on premise. Group daycare centers, residents with more, okay, so this is where it is changing, so I need to slow down and not skip over this.
I just got a quick question though.
Yes.
So on the alcohol license?
Yes.
I just want to be clear. So there's a conditional use with the applicant, not the land. Any change in ownership will require approval of a conditional use for the new owner licensee from the Plan Commission. Do they also still need to get that from the clerk?
Yes, we're not in charge of the alcohol licensing, but it's just saying like, so if, what we've done in the past is like, let's say the establishment sells and they go through the provisions for an alcohol, like they're getting the license and everything, we would issue the conditional use permit for hours of operation, seating, all of that stuff, because we have had, like, if, sometimes it could be the same, but it might be different, and making the person aware of the minimum requirements is, I think, important, so.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so really, one of the bigger changes on here was the conditional use permit for residential. So it's actually H. So residential with more than 2 units in an existing building. And number 1, the alteration or modification taking place within the existing footprint of the building. The only alterations approved outside of the existing building footprint are for purposes of creating egress, like basically egress, you know.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question on that one? So
Yes.
existing buildings in that area that have more than 2 residents right now,
Right.
what would they have to do?
They're fine.
grandfathered?
Yeah, they're fine
So
till.
is it when it sells, when the apartments are turned over? How?
It would be for renovations.
When
So like
they-
if they're adding additional units.
Okay.
So we have a couple spaces in the downtown area that if we want to keep those historic structures, like that would be when they're renovated, coming in for a conditional use
And we're
permit.
probably gonna have one coming up, right?
We probably will.
Yeah, so the dentist office building was sold.
Yeah. So that would require a conditional use permit. That particular one has to go through historic approval. And then it would come through us with the understanding it's staying in the same building footprint, with the exception of like if it has to egress. And part of the reason I want to preface this by saying like, so one of the things that came up is that if it is an existing building with those units attached and they're not renovating outside of that area, then what's the trigger for requiring parking? Because if we require parking for renovations on some, there's at least 2 large ones downtown, will somebody be willing to take on that project? And I'm gonna get yelled at so
For
bad.
on-site parking, you're talking?
Just like, if we want to see those projects renovated and we want to maintain them as historic buildings, like, would somebody take on that project? Because you'd have to alter so much of the building. A, I don't know that it could be because of the historic aspect. And B, we want to see those buildings getting renovated. And so most of the downtown units, and please correct me if I'm wrong, most of the smaller buildings downtown are probably maybe 2 units upstairs. When you're going more than 2 units, you have to bring it up to fire code. It can get really expensive. I don't think we as a group want to see anything, you know, like smaller scale that's already existing. But it's when we're getting into over 2 units that you're triggering fire code, and that's when you're sinking real money into those places.
State building plans.
Right, state building plans, all of that stuff. And I think if we want to see those existing buildings rehabbed, we can require them to come in for a conditional use, but that's kind of where I was going with that. Does that make sense? So for residential new construction, this is the one underneath, and if you guys have, so like residential new construction, so new construction meaning a structure that is brand new construction in a location where a building did not previously exist or the building has been demolished. So in other words, like let's say let's say this building catches fire. I don't know. And sorry, so then a brand new building is being put in its place and they're putting residential. Each residential unit is required 1 parking stall, because that was kind of what came up with the arts district, right? Off-street bicycle parking requirements, kind of that's normal for the multifamily residential. And this is kind of different too. Each unit should have a usable open space per unit. This can include rooftop, common area, balcony, porch, and this is only on new construction. And by new construction, I mean a brand new building, not a renovation. So like a brand new building where nothing's been there. So balcony or porch area, one of them, in lieu of a balcony or porch area, units may be designed with a rooftop common area that can be used for all unit developments. The rooftop common area can be or common community room open space, like a shared space inside of the property, which like we're seeing this in all of the developments coming up anyway. So, you know, gyms, whatever. So that's number 3. So does that make sense? Okay. I accidentally hit the wrong button. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So providing on-site recreational in conjunction with a principal structure. In other words, you can have a gym, right? That's pretty normal. Light industrial use, which all operates and complies with the requirement. Conducted entirely within the enclosed building. Not create nuisances such as odor and noise. Do not, so like this could be like a small scale, like, you know, brewery or something like that. Complies with all the performance standards listed. And then it says that with the, and then alcohol beverages production qualifies as light industry use, but only when conducted in incidental indoor sales and services. So, all right, so permitted accessory use, detached residential garage, shed, gazebos, or similar structures, a company cafeteria, home occupation, on-site parking lots, private residential recreation facilities, and then temporary uses like, you know, when something's being built. So outdoor sales, outdoor assembly, basically contractors, project office, and so on. The only part of this that I really modified from, I think, the original one is I said temporary portable storage containers up to 12 months that are normally, those are normally, but I wanted to put a date on there because otherwise, like, it's just easier. Mobile vending for special events. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Sorry. I keep hitting the side button and not the bottom one. Okay, so regulations for this, performance standards, and then those regulations are there. Sign standards, signage is falling back to the sign area. We have minimum dwelling unit requirements. These were echoed in the multifamily residential for purposes, and then how we're measuring floor space. Each unit shall be designed to meet a minimum space use located requirement in the ordinance, with the exception of habitable rooms. It needs to have at least one window directly facing the outdoors, which can be used as egress, because right now that's not required, so you could just have 2 doors. So multifamily dwelling are permitted to have offices, gyms, and so on. And then we're getting into those requirements with, so ground level use frontage on public streets shall be non-residential use. A minimum of 50% of the ground floor of the residence must be active non-residential use. This area may be used as retail or commercial use for zoning districts. Storage and parking are not considered active uses. This is a lot of this is from our original stuff, or I expanded on it so it was more clear. The first 24 feet of the ground level measures from the front of the building shall be non-residential use. Minimum regulations for the district, maximum 4 stories, minimum 1 story, landscaping, they don't have requirements. Maximum floor area ratio is 4. May exceed through use of a structure, parking structure. Obviously this is all from the original. The bulk of it is. Minimum lot area 1,000 feet, minimum lot width is 20, minimum street frontage is 20, minimum front yard setback. They wrote it the last time as an average yard setback. I'm fine with that, unless you guys want 0, but I think average yard is a good way to do it. Minimum side yard is 0 or 5. So this is where I did put a caveat on the 5. So, and there's a little asterisk next to it. So maximum permitted setback of 0 feet, except where permitted by the Plan Commission, are essential components of the site design for fire code with egress. So if we have somebody that has an egress, all of a sudden we don't, build a building right next to it, and then they can't get out if there's a fire. So that's not great. So Minimum rear yard setback is 0, again with that egress. Minimum side yard is 4 feet from property line, accessory, 4 feet from alley. Rear lot line is for accessory, again 4 feet. Required buffer yard, see the requirements there. Minimum paved surface setback, oh, I'm sorry guys. No, I'm boring you here. 0 feet. Minimum building height, story 12 feet measuring, and then it talks about that. Minimum number of parking stalls, not required unless it's specific to that particular area. Talking about entranceway and how it needs to be primarily facing frontward, and then second could be oriented off of a side street, and then facade requirements just for those spaces. I added pictures to upper and lower floors so that it's easier to see what's going on. I'm on slide 14. I don't know where you are. There you go. Yeah. So you're seeing how that's applied. Building material, while it's gonna, like, what my definition and somebody else's definition of high quality material might be, like, just stating it in there.
So on the material, I mean, it would have to be consistent with the historical preservation if
Yep.
it was in the district.
Yeah, and I went ahead and slapped some of the stuff on from that at the end of this, just so that we
Okay.
could see with the COA.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're better off just referencing that when you can, because that way if that changes, you don't have to change this.
Yeah. So, screening on the rooftops, lot coverage, just stormwater requirements. And I did say any questions here, which we can circle back, but if you click to the next slide, I did have the COA, which I've gone over with you guys, because it's so crazy the way that it was, like, it was approved, not following a lot lines for the historic preservation, but then some of them, if they are designated, are in, and then I talked this over with Rick, but essentially you could have a piece of property that's in central business that falls under the historic preservation, but because it doesn't follow property lines, if it's an improvement in the rear of that, it doesn't need the COA, even though it's on the same property. So, and I know I talked to you guys already about that, so
Jordan can tell you horror stories.
I
after
don't,
the
yeah, I
meeting.
don't, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you had to rub it in.
So, because I know we had the question about that, and then I followed up on it, and then I included it. So it is on the back of this, and then it references the ordinance number. And I know this isn't about that, but just in case we have it. So, because, like, let's say there's an area outside, like, that's zone central business, but it's outside the historic district, which there are a couple properties. They wouldn't have to go through the historic. I'm just
COA
gonna
process.
stop now, because you guys know what I'm saying. So.
Yeah.
So do you guys want some time to digest this? Like, what would you like me to do here?
We do have a notice for a public hearing, so we should do that.
Yeah.
So we'll close the meeting, open it up for a public hearing. Nobody signed up to speak. And doesn't look like anybody online wants to speak to it. So we can reopen the meeting. So you have a couple choices. You can digest it. You can move it to the council. Whatever you want to do. I mean, we don't have anything in here right now, so and I don't know if there's anything other than the one building that might fall into this, but they're going to be doing a COA anyway.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Two? Okay. Okay. And there again, I mean, if there's something that we discover later, you know, we can always amend it.
Or if you guys have questions or concerns. I
So-
am not going to be at the council meeting on the 26th.
We might
so I'll push
skip
it off.
Yeah. So these business districts, are these zoning districts? Are these going to be ordinances?
This is an ordinance change for the central. Sorry. This is an ordinance change for the central business district. we were looking at this district because the way that it was written, it was referencing the multifamily residential, and we've had questions with parking and all of that stuff, so this is,
So it'll be 2 readings,
yes,
and the first one we won't do until September?
yep.
Okay. All right. So you want to move it on? I'll entertain a motion. Yeah? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Majewski. Any discussion? It looks like it must have took you hours to do this.
It was, I couldn't show you guys the red line because it was unreadable, honestly. It was rough.
This is what you do when I'm down at utilities?
Yeah.
When I'm not bothering you every 5
Torture
minutes?
myself with this.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Looks like we have one more. How about, are there many differences between these two?
No, there's hardly any. I'm just bringing this back because I know that was the request that I address some of the stuff in the central business district, and this is kind of that way of two-folding. Couple small changes in the arts district. There was some language that I was getting confused on. I think sometimes you look at it so long. Got that changed over, but all of it's pretty much the same. If you guys are, if
You're
you're
not gonna make me
okay.
go through 29 more slides, are you?
You don't want to go through 29 more slides. I don't know why.
Just picking on
I
you.
know.
But what were the changes, do you remember off the top of your head?
No, and it's weird because it's not pulling up now. It's just showing up as blank on my
Oh,
computer.
you can look at the screen and then,
Okay, hang on. No, there was some really small changes with like it was in the permitted area. It was something with the regulations, and one of you guys pointed out that it didn't make sense, and I went back and rewrote it, like at a meeting. So that was one of the major changes in it. I can't remember now, and it really is not pulling up at all.
Can you just, for clarification, what's the actual boundary of what you're proposing for the arts district? What are
So,
the streets?
Yeah, we're not assigning, all we're doing is establishing the zoning district at this point, and as businesses want to rezone to it, then they can come in and rezone to it. So what we're going to see, though, is it's going to be you know where the arts area is located at.
I know where Grand Inspire is.
Yeah, so like,
But I mean, what kind of area are we looking at? I mean, are we looking at just like so many blocks there?
yeah, most likely, and I'm gonna hopefully address that more in the future land use maps that are coming up in the comp plan. So those will be areas that'll be like, hey, here's the future land use. This is where we're looking at this district being applied. So it's gonna look really kind of like, I'm using a bad word here, but it's gonna look slightly like spot zoning, but really it's not. So, honestly, I could see like the Opera House could fall under, it falls under this use, all of those, so Opera House falls under the current downtown zoning district too. It's not like but Grand Inspired.
I guess that was my question was, if I'm trying to look at where I can plan a business or where I'm, if we want to develop a new type of studio properties or whatever, and looking at this, I think if there's a district where we design, and I'm almost, as a past realtor, I'm looking at too, where are we looking at properties now that may not be in the best of shape that are going to then be part of this district and, maybe be raised and new construction go up, just being real. So I guess if we were going to have a defined arts district.
Like the zoning, actual zoning.
Yeah, actual like this is the arts district. It doesn't mean that the Opera House couldn't also fall under whatever.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, if we know this, 9 blocks or whatever of Stoughton is absolutely artist central in Stoughton, I guess that's where I was looking, not for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
For people purchasing the property, for people developing the property, for businesses moving in there, for tourism coming there. That if you have an established actual boundary area, to me that seems like a more practical, if you're creating an arts district, that seems like more of what you would do, rather than like what you're saying is where
Yeah.
I'm seeing by looking at the two of these when I read them, very similar, and you could end up with some art thing over there. And we got galleries throughout town and all. But when we were talking about user spaces, which
Yeah.
we had talked about at one time, where you would actually have somebody in a property in an arts district who's actually doing metal arts or stained glass or whatever, I just think having an actual area just makes more sense for the city.
So we do have, so a couple things. The first one is there was a lot of confusion between this, like what zoning is versus that art district, because there was a resolution for an arts district that was passed a few years. Yeah, like, and it references it in my slides. So I don't, those are the two things. This is more for the zoning portion of it. Where I'm hoping to apply that is in the future land use and work on like, okay, this is the corridor we see. And, I'm like trying to tread lightly here. So I want to address it there because even if it is in a landowner's best interest, if we go in and just start rezoning their property, it could be like, woofda, you know what I mean? I think that we could rezone some of them right now during this process. But
they're grandfathered where they are, so if you're...
They absolutely are, and I had a whole discussion with the mayor on this, because I was like, oh, we could do this, and then, like, there was one or two of the landowners that they were afraid that...
And that's a
Yeah.
teaching moment.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on that?
I mean, we do have some services and some uses that are in the downtown that you wouldn't think would be consistent with an arts district.
Yep.
And we don't have any intention, and I don't think we even could, tell them, look, you got to do something else. I mean, the decision point comes up, I think, when properties transfer from one owner to another.
I would like to look at the district, like establishing the zoning arts district through the future land use map that is I don't want to say a rubber stamp because that's not completely right, but like the roadmap for getting this area established.
Because I think the fear is, if somebody has a business for a long time, they want to retire and sell it, and now they're limited on what it can be sold and used for, that creates a hardship. So I think
Even if
Those-
it's, yeah,
I think that's what makes
grandfathered in
people
and so
nervous,
forth.
but I don't really think that's what we're trying to do here.
no, yes.
And we would probably, hopefully get to the point where we'd have some incentives for folks that wanted to purchase these buildings to maybe do something different. That would be a goal to get to.
I know what
That
you're
takes
saying, though.
money.
It'd be nice. I just don't know. Like, I think that's how I'm going to try to, tackle it, is through the future land use map. I love your face right now. You look so excited for me doing it this way.
Yeah.
I guess I've lived enough places where I understand there are going to be people who are uncomfortable with growth no matter how we go about it, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whether it's ours. But if for the city we're talking about an arts district and we have a concept and a vision for that, and we want to bring in artists to this area, which will help in many ways to the community, I think it is realistic. It might be 30 years from now that
Right.
the entire district gets built out. But I do think you have to have a vision, and along with the vision, you have to have some future planning that says, this is what we want for this area of town in 30 years, 35 years, with an expectation that, but I get the business owner perspective. I mean, I've been a
Yeah.
business owner and I get it, but sometimes that has to move around for growth.
I
And I
think
know, they can all come crucify me tomorrow,
Yeah, I
right?
think the purpose of the ordinance, though, is if somebody were to purchase a building and want to do it as an arts district, it really streamlines the approval process. I mean, it almost becomes administratively at that point.
I'm hoping it
So I think it really gives them
Yeah.
some.
I know. I was like,
I think it really sets the table for them that says, if I want to do this here, here's all I have to do. It's all laid out. Instead of us trying to say, well, we'd really like you to do that, but we don't have anything that will make you do that. This tells them what they can do.
It's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start.
Yeah. But then you'll have other people that'll say, well, geez, if the whole downtown is an arts district, how diversified is your downtown? Well, I think that for those folks, I think they're gonna learn that an arts district is more than a studio and a gallery and what you might think is an arts district. You know, it could be a food cart, it could be a hair salon, it could be a tattoo shop, it could be anything that you may or may not associate with art.
And there are a number of buildings on there that are doing exactly this, right? Like, we all know this. So, in this particular area, that, I mean, we all know, like, it's already, you know, I want to make sure we have landowners' blessings before we rezone their property.
Yeah.
That's where.
So I guess the question for tonight is do you want more time to digest this? Do you have other questions, or do you want to move this one on as well? All right, is that a motion or is that a say? All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any discussion?
I only had one question in one of your slides, like, when you identify the historic downtown district and then the local landmarks area, and it has the depot in there and the warehouse across the
Yep.
street from it and the lagerette, why is that large amount of sandy property
Yeah, that's,
a local landmark? I can
So-
understand the lagerette and space, but the dirt?
it's going by the property line on that that's what's really crazy is like half of it's not by property line, that particular one is, and so that whole area, I mean, what are we approving on that back lot? I don't know. So that's a unique lot anyway, because in
Yep.
theory you could go in, CSM it off, it's double frontage, so at that point I could say I don't think it is part of, you know, we'll let Brick weigh in on that one.
Sure.
So, yeah.
That's the joy of being the city attorney. You get to look at all these ordinance and decide whether or not they're enforceable.
And I call him when it's like not, like it's a problem.
I think he's on speed dial, isn't he?
Yeah, he sent me an appointment to let me know he's out of town. Like,
For the next year?
yep, pretty much. Leave me alone, lady.
All right, any questions or comments on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. Future agenda items.
We have 2 conditional use permits, and then I believe 2 SIP approvals coming up at the next Plan Commission meeting. I don't want to say that's it, because that just sounds, it's actually like a lot. But
When is that meeting? September?
it's like, is it the 8th? September 8th or something weird? It's really early.
It is. Yeah, we have a joint review board meeting before it as well.
Okay.
I don't know if you're part of that or not. All right, do you guys have anything you would like, you want some more zoning codes or anything to be on as a future agenda item, or you had your fill for a while? Speechless?
Whatever. No, I mean.
Vacation.
I need the direction from you guys and I'll do it. Yeah. So, but I think you guys did a lot tonight, so.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Caravello, is there a second?
Second.
Schumacher, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you. See some of you tomorrow night.